Well, hello, this is Miss Dagenford, and I just wanted to maybe give us a head start for tomorrow. And so I wanted to go over some of the leftover organelles that we have. And that would be the ones dealing with energy, the mitochondria and chloroplasts, and then some of the other interior organelles. So by the end of this video, you should know the structures, you should know the functions, and you should be able to tell me some of those unique details that these organelles have. So let's get started. And we're going to talk about two organelles that deal with energy transactions. And we have the mitochondria and then we have the chloroplasts. Now, the mitochondria, we might have heard it in the past as the mighty mitochondria or the powerhouse of the cell. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just an incomplete picture. So what does this mean? Well, let's go ahead and draw it out. Now, classically, the mitochondria is kind of drawn as like a little kidney bean shape. And that's certainly true. They're relatively small. But you do need to understand that they can move. They're in the sense that they're not static. They're not just this rigid structure. They're flexible. Now, there's an outer membrane, and then we have this inner membrane. And the inner membrane, and you want to go ahead and try your hands at drawing this. The inner membrane is highly folded. It just curves in and out and in and out. Now, there's a very good reason for that, and that's because what occurs on this inner membrane is extremely important. And so the more inner membrane you have, the more things that you can produce and convert. So it increases the surface area. So we have the outer membrane, we have the inner membrane, and then we have the inside, which is called the matrix. Now, the folds also have a name. So these folds that stick out, they're called the cristae. So I'll go ahead and label this one, and then I'll put an arrow to that one as well. They're called the cristae. And these, again, it's very unique to the mitochondria. Now, so the mighty mitochondria, what does this even mean? Well, the mighty mitochondria is so named because it's going to be producing lots and lots of ATP. Now, ATP is this molecule that is a little bundle of energy. It has a little high energy to it. Now, you might be thinking, and very correctly, well, wait a minute, we just finished a unit that in which we talked about molecules having a lot of energy. Glucose and lipids, fats and oils, they store energy. So what's up? Didn't we do that? And you'd be correct. They have a lot of energy. In fact, they almost have too much to use. So what mitochondria are going to do, they're going to take the energy in glucose. Now I'm going to go ahead and put glucose, but it can use lipids. And it's going to convert that energy into smaller molecules. And the way I like to think about it, glucose is similar to a $500 bill. So, or $1,000 bill, whatever takes your fancy. So very valuable. Nobody would ever turn away a $500 bill. But you're not going to be able to go into 7-Eleven and say, hey, I like a cherry big gulp and here's my $500 bill. Give me $495 and change, please. That's just not going to happen. So when you have these really large molecules, it's much more useful to convert it to these $1 bills in form of ATP. So over in our diagram, in our cell, you're going to have glucose and the products of breaking down glucose, and you're going to take lipids and the products of breaking them down. You're going to see those going into the mitochondria, and what it's going to be doing is churning out lots and lots of ATP. Now, ATP is this abbreviation. It actually stands for adenosine triphosphate. And so you can see where we get that little abbreviation ATP for that. Now, throughout what we've been doing, I've been trying to emphasize that, cells are not all the same. So if you have a cell that is going to do a lot and use a lot of energy, then you're going to see a lot of mitochondria in it. So muscle cells are a good example of this. You see a boatload of mitochondria, just a huge amount. Nerve cells, liver cells in our body. In plants, we're going to see it in seedlings or leaves that are just beginning to grow. And what the mitochondria is going to be useful for is the process of respiration, where we're going to take glucose, C6H12O6, a nice carbohydrate. We're going to combine it with oxygen, and we're going to get CO2, ATP, and then water as well. And so that we call it respiration. You might think of the lungs, but it's respiration because it's using up oxygen. Now, if we scroll down to the chloroplasts are going to be very similar. Now, they don't have just an inner and outer membrane. They have these little stacks of membrane that I colored green because they have chlorophyll. And so the inner and outer membrane is there, but this time they have stacks of membrane called grana. And then the individual ones are called thylakoid membranes. It's a really weird name, but it's just what they decided to call it. And so in this case, photochloroplasts are going to be involved in photosynthesis, where they're going to take the energy and light with carbon dioxide and water and then produce oxygen and glucose. Now, this is not a balanced equation. The other one wasn't either, but it's sufficient for now to just understand what the reactants and the products are. So those are our two big energy producing organelles. So what are some of the other ones that we have? Well, we haven't gone over the smooth endoplasmic reticulum yet. And the smooth endoplasmic reticulum is smooth because there are no ribosomes on it. And so, sorry about that. And so it's going to be useful for lipid metabolism. And lipid metabolism, that means we're going to be making or changing lipids. So things like steroids or the membrane lipids, any cell that is going to be making or converting lipids needs smooth ER. So we're going to see a lot of them. So the adrenal glands that are making steroid hormones, they're going to have a lot of smooth ER. Now, just to give you an idea how cells can change, animals and plants as they're facing winter coming up, they actually can change their cell membranes. And that's going to be useful for them. Now, in the other thing that the smooth ER can do is be involved in detoxification. So any byproducts that are harmful can be removed. We talked about lysosomes already. Lyse means to break. You can think of lysosomes as being the recycling plant. They contain powerful digestive enzymes. They are slightly acidic. And as they are slightly acidic, that means the enzymes work best there. The other thing that is noteworthy is that it is used to break things down. And again, that's where that word lyse comes into play. And where do we see this? Well, we see it in amoebas that might be eating something. In this case, I've drawn a little paramecium that the amoeba would be eating. We also have them in our white blood cells so that they are defending and eating up bacteria. We also see them in cells that need to actually die. Now that's just really weird, but go back to our plants in the fall. Well, trees are going to be needing to drop their leaves. And as they drop their leaves, they're going to need those cells to actually die. And lysosomes actually are going to be involved to tell those cells to release those digestive enzymes. And then as they do that, they are going to be digested themselves. That's an important part of what trees do. So here's a white blood cell that might be engulfing the little paramecium inside. Now, What about our cytoskeleton? Well, the cytoskeleton includes proteins such as microtubules, and microtubules make these big hollow tubes. And then we have actin, and actin proteins are very small, and so they make smaller little protein chains. And the idea of the cytoskeleton is this an internal framework. It holds the shape of the cell. It can also move organelles. And it does so because these microtubules form these big highways. And we'll watch this little video tomorrow. We have these little motor proteins that carry those vesicles, and they walk along the microtubules, and they can actually move the organelles around or the vesicles around. The other thing that the microtubules are involved in would be the cilia. And cilia are these tiny, tiny little cell projections. And so you have many of them, and they're short, but they can move. And as they can move the cell. There's another type of cell extension called the flagella. You're probably familiar with that one. And the flagella is going to be able to move the cell. Well, that's going to get us to tomorrow, and that's a good way to start.